The rain was lashing against the thin glass of the cafe, a drumbeat for a life stuck on repeat. For Alara Chavez, every customer was a reminder of the tip she needed, and every hour was a countdown to the residency lawyer's bill she couldn't pay. She was a good person drowning in bad luck, but tonight, a simple act of kindness, helping a shivering old man with his tattered bags, was about to ignite a war. Because the next day, it wasn't a thank you note that arrived. It was a black SUV, 4 stone-faced bodyguards, and a question that would change her life forever. The smell of burnt coffee and synthetic almond syrup clung to Alara Chavez's clothes like a second skin. It was 9:00 p.m. on a Tuesday in November, and the rain was hammering against the windows of the daily grind with a fury that felt personal. Every drop seemed to mock her, a tiny reflection of the debt that was drowning her. Alara was 28, but her reflection in the dark glass showed eyes that looked closer to 45. She had the kind of exhaustion that didn't just sit on your shoulders, it burrowed into your bones. She was a waitress, but waitress didn't cover it. She was a therapist to lonely regulars, a cleaner for the messes other people left behind, and most importantly, the sole provider for her younger sister, Sophia. Sophia was her world, and her world was shrinking. Sophia had a severe respiratory condition that required a new experimental medication, the kind of medication that insurance companies classified as exploratory and that Alara classified as impossible. A bill for $3,500 sat on her dresser at home next to a final notice red envelope from her landlord. Alara, wipe down table 6. You're spacing out. Max, her boss, barked from behind the counter. He wasn't a bad man, just a perpetually stressed one, his dreams having soured long ago into the shape of this struggling cafe. Sorry, Max. Alara grabbed a damp rag and went to work on the table, her sneakers with the dollar store insoles squelching quietly. The last customers, a pair of college kids, had left a $2 tip on a $40 bill. She discreetly pocketed it, the crumpled paper a tiny, pathetic victory. All right, that's it. I'm calling it, Max announced, jangling his keys. Lock up behind me and don't forget to scrub the industrial blender. It was backing up all afternoon. He was out the door before she could even nod, the bell above the door tinkling a mocking little goodbye. Alara locked the door, flipped the open sign to closed, and leaned her forehead against the cool glass. The streetlights of the unremarkable suburb blurred in the downpour. All she wanted was to get into her 1999 Nissan Sentra, a rattling tin can she called the Esperanza, and drive to her tiny apartment, soak her aching feet, and check on Sophia before she fell asleep. She began the familiar, soul-crushing closing ritual, scrubbing the industrial-grade coffee machine, mopping the sticky floors, and hauling the heavy, pungent trash bags to the alley. By the time she was done, it was 9:45 p.m. The rain had somehow gotten worse. She grabbed her thin jacket, the zipper broken, and fished her car keys from her apron. Stepping out into the alley, she pulled her hood up, a pathetic shield. As she rounded the corner to the street, she saw him. He was an old man, easily in his late 70s, standing under the cafe's leaking awning, which offered almost no protection. He was soaked to the bone, wearing a threadbare wool coat that looked like it was from another century. He was clutching a small, battered suitcase with one broken wheel and a worn leather satchel. He was shivering, his pale hands fumbling with the satchel's clasp. As Alara watched, he dropped it. A small black notebook and a few papers spilled out onto the wet pavement. "Oh dear," he whispered, a cloud of breath escaping his lips. He bent down, his joints clearly aching, trying to gather his things. A passing car drove through a puddle, sending a tidal wave of gutter water splashing onto him. The man didn't curse, he just flinched, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Alara's feet felt like lead. "Go home, Alara. You're tired. You're not a superhero. You can't save everyone." The debt collector's voice from this morning's phone call echoed in her ear. "We are not a charity, Ms. Chavez." The old man tried to pick up the suitcase, but the broken wheel snagged on a crack in the pavement, and it flopped over. "Damn it," Alara sighed, the sound lost in the wind. She walked out from under the relative cover of the alley. "Sir." The old man looked up, startled. His eyes were a watery pale blue, magnified by thick, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked less like a person and more like a forgotten memory. "Sir, you need some help." "Oh," he stammered, his voice reedy. No, I'm quite all right, my dear. Just a bit discombobulated." He tried to smile, but it was a pained grimace. "You're soaked. Where are you going?" Alara asked, already bending down to pick up the wet notebook. The Cornerstone Lodge," he said, pointing a shaky finger down the dark street. "It's just down the way." Alara's heart sank. The Cornerstone Lodge was a good 12 blocks away. In this weather, it was a perilous journey for a man in his condition. It was a place for people with no other options. "That's too far to walk in this," Alara said, making a decision. She handed him his notebook. "My car is just here. It's not much, Aunt, but it's dry. Let me give you a ride." "Oh, I couldn't possibly," he insisted. You're very kind, but I can't impose." "It's not an imposition. It's common sense," Alara said, her waitress voice cutting through. "You'll catch your death out here. Now I'm Alara. You grab the satchel. I'll grab the suitcase. My car is the silver one." The man looked at her, then at his suitcase, then at the unrelenting rain. I'm Mr. Silas," he said, finally relenting. "Thank you, Alara." She wrestled the lopsided suitcase while he protectively clutched the satchel to his chest. She led him to the Esperanza, which looked even more pathetic in the rain. She threw his bag in the back and opened the creaking passenger door for him. He settled into the seat, which had a prominent tear-leaking stuffing. The car smelled like her, of old coffee and cheap cleaner. "Thank you," he said again, his voice small. "You are a very kind young woman." "Just get in out of the rain, Mr. Silas," Alara said, sliding into the driver's seat. The car took 3 tries to start, the engine turning over with a painful-sounding groan before catching. The check engine light, her constant companion, glowed cheerfully on the dashboard. "It has character," Mr. Silas noted, looking at the light. Alara just laughed, a short, tired sound. That's one word for it. The drive was short, but the silence inside the car was thick, broken only by the rhythmic squeak thud of the worn-out windshield wipers and the man's quiet, rattling breaths. Alara could smell the damp wool of his coat and something else. A faint, sweet scent, like old books and pipe tobacco. It was a clean smell, which seemed at odds with his destitute appearance. "You're not from around here," Alara said, making conversation to fill the space. The Cornerstone Lodge was not a tourist destination. "No, my dear, not really," Mr. Silas replied. He was staring out the window, his expression unreadable. "I'm visiting, trying to find something I lost." "A lot of that going around," Alara murmured, thinking of her own lost opportunities. The application for permanent residency she'd had to abandon when Sophia got sick. She navigated her car around a massive pothole. "The Cornerstone isn't the best part of town. You have family meeting you?" No family," he said, a sudden sharp edge of sadness in his voice that made Alara wince. I'm just getting my bearings, you see. The world moves so very fast these days." "Tell me about it," Alara said, pulling into the motel's pockmarked parking lot. The C on the Cornerstone sign was burnt out, making it read Ornerstone Lodge. It was a single-story, L-shaped building that looked like it hadn't been painted since the 1980s. She parked as close to the lobby door as she could. Well, here we are. The rain was still a deluge. Alara looked at Mr. Silas. He looked at the lobby, which was visible through the dirty glass door. A single flickering fluorescent light and a bored-looking clerk behind a pane of thick acrylic. "All right, stay here," Alara commanded. "I'll get you checked in, or at least get your bag to the door." "Oh no, you've done far too much." "I'm already wet," Alara said, cutting him off. She hopped out, ran to the back, grabbed his broken-wheeled suitcase, and half-dragged, half-carried it to the lobby door, propping it open with her hip. She motioned for him. Mr. Silas grabbed his satchel and scurried from the car to the lobby, his old legs moving with surprising speed. He looked tiny and frail under the buzzing neon light. Alara set the suitcase down just inside the door, water pooling around it. "You're good from here." The clerk didn't even look up from his phone. Mr. Silas was fumbling inside his wet coat. He pulled out a worn leather wallet. It looked expensive once, but was now cracked and faded. He extracted a crumpled $5 bill. "Please, my dear, for your trouble, for the gasoline." He held it out to her, his hand trembling. Alara looked at the $5. That was lunch. That was half a bus fare to her second cleaning job. She needed that $5. She shook her head. "No, Mr. Silas, I can't. Please, I insist. A kindness for a kindness." "Keep it," Alara said, her voice firm but gentle. "Get yourself a hot coffee from the machine over there. You look like you need it more than I do." She pushed his hand and the money gently back toward him. For the first time, the old man's watery eyes focused on her. Really focused. He wasn't just looking at her. He was seeing her. The exhaustion, the mended seam on her jacket, the defiance in her chin. He looked at her for a long, silent 10 seconds. "You have a good heart, Alara Chavez," he said, his reedy voice suddenly filled with a strange, quiet authority. "Don't let the world take that from you. It's worth more than all the gold in... Well, it's worth a great deal." Alara didn't know what to say. "Just stay dry, Mr. Silas. Good night." She turned and ran back through the rain to her car, not looking back. She didn't see the old man watch her go. She didn't see him straighten up, his posture losing some of its frail stoop. And she certainly didn't see him walk to the front desk, pull out a pristine black credit card from that same battered wallet, and say to the clerk, "A room, the best you have, and I need to make a call." Alara drove home, the wipers beating their rhythm. She felt strange. Not good, exactly. The 5 bill-sized hole in her pocket was still there, but the warmth from her small act of defiance against the cruelty of the night, that was there too. It was a tiny, flickering ember, but it was enough to get her home. When she walked into her apartment, Sophia was asleep on the couch, the TV mumbling. Her medication reminder was blinking on her phone. She saw the red envelope from the landlord on the counter. The ember died instantly, smothered by the cold, hard weight of reality. She'd just helped a man, but she still hadn't figured out how to save herself. The next morning, the world had not reset. The rain had stopped, but the sky was a bruised, heavy gray. Alara had slept for 4 hours, her dreams filled with a stressful loop of ringing cash registers and Sophia's hacking cough. She arrived at the daily grind at 6 a.m., the smell of stale beer from the alley greeting her. Max was already inside, wrestling with a new shipment of pastries. "The new guy, Carlos, called out sick," Max grumbled, not even looking at her. "So, it's just you and me for the morning rush. Don't be slow." "I'm never slow," Alara muttered, tying her apron. The morning rush was a blur of demanding customers, fussy milk-steaming wands, and dropped toast. Alara moved on autopilot, her smile a painted mask, her feet already aching. She was friendly to Mrs. Rodriguez, who always ordered a scone and talked about her cats. She was quick with Mr. Chen, a lawyer who always barked his order for a large, non-fat, extra hot, no-foam latte, as if he were in a courtroom. By 10:30 a.m., the rush had subsided. Alara was wiping down the counter, her mind drifting back to the $3,500 bill when the bell above the door chimed. But it wasn't a normal chime. It was followed by a heavy silence. The few remaining customers in the cafe, Mrs. Rodriguez and Sam, a college student hunched over a laptop, all stopped what they were doing. Alara looked up. A black Lincoln Navigator, the kind that costs more than her apartment building, was double-parked out front, blocking the entire street. 4 men were stepping out. They were not customers. They wore ill-fitting black suits, the kind you buy off the rack for a funeral or a court appearance. They were big, with thick necks and restless eyes that scanned everything. They looked wrong, like they didn't belong in a world of muffins and light roast. 3 of them fanned out, one staying by the door, his hand inside his jacket. 2 just stood, scanning the room. The 4th, clearly the leader, walked up to the counter. He was in his late 40s, with a pockmarked face and hair cut severely short. He didn't look at the menu. He looked at Alara. "You're Alara Chavez?" he asked. His voice was like gravel in a blender. Alara's hands, which were holding a wet rag, froze. Yes. Can I help you?" The man, who Alara would come to know as Mr. Vane, slid a phone across the counter. The screen was lit, showing a photograph. It was a grainy, security cam-style photo, but it was unmistakably the man from last night, Mr. Silas, pictured walking out of a bus station. "You were seen with this man last night around 9:45 p.m. You drove him to the Cornerstone Lodge." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Alara's blood ran cold. Her throat tightened. I see a lot of people. It's a cafe." Vane leaned in, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl that was somehow louder than a shout. "Don't play dumb, sweetheart. It's not a good look for you. We tracked his burner phone to the motel, and the clerk, who is much more helpful than you, said a pretty waitress in a beat-up silver Honda dropped him off. That's you." Alara was shaking. Her mind was racing. Was Mr. Silas a criminal? A fugitive? Had she been an accomplice? She thought of Sophia. She couldn't be involved in this. I just gave him a ride," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It was raining. He was an old man." "He's an old man, all right," Vane said with a sneer. "A confused old man. His family is very, very worried about him. He's not well. He wanders off. He thinks he's someone he's not." "He seemed fine to me," Alara said, a flicker of defiance. Vane's eyes narrowed. "He's a sick old man with dementia, and he's in possession of things that don't belong to him. His family just wants him back safe and sound. So, where is he?" "How would I know?" Alara's voice was high-pitched. "I dropped him off. That's it, I swear." Max, who had been watching from the kitchen doorway, his face pale, bustled over. "What's the problem, gentlemen? Alara, what did you do?" "She's obstructing," Vane said, not taking his eyes off Alara. "We're private investigators hired by the family. We're just trying to find a missing person." "She'll tell you," Max said, panicking. "Tell them, Alara. We don't want any trouble here." "I told you!" Alara yelled, her panic turning to frustration. "I dropped him at the Cornerstone. I haven't seen him since. I don't know anything." Vane studied her for a long moment, the way a butcher studies a cut of meat. He seemed to be weighing whether she was lying or just useless. He finally decided on the latter. "He's not at the motel," Vane said. "He checked out at 5 a.m. this morning, paid in cash, vanished." He pulled a business card from his pocket and slapped it on the counter. It was heavy, expensive cardstock. Sterling Trust Solutions. Damon Sterling, CEO. Discreet Inquiries. Asset Recovery. "That's the man's son, Damon Sterling," Vane said. "If you see Mr. Silas again, if he contacts you, you call that number immediately. If we find out you did see him and you didn't call, it will be very, very bad for you, Alara. We're not cops. We have different rules." He turned to his men. "We're done here." The 4 men filed out as abruptly as they had arrived, climbing back into the black Navigator. They didn't just leave. They retreated like a tide of black ink. The Navigator peeled out, running a red light as it disappeared down the street. The cafe was deathly silent. Mrs. Rodriguez looked like she was about to faint. The student was staring, his mouth open. Max turned on Alara, his face a mottled red. "What the hell was that, Alara? Who are you bringing to my cafe? Asset recovery? Are you in trouble with a loan shark? Is this about your visa status?" "No, I don't know," Alara said, tears welling in her eyes. I just gave an old man a ride." "Well, you just cost me half my morning business," Max snapped. "And you scared Mrs. Rodriguez. Go. Just go take your break. Go in the back. I don't want you scaring off anyone else." Alara, humiliated and terrified, fled to the tiny, cramped break room, which was really just a closet with a microwave. She slumped onto a stack of soda syrup boxes, put her head in her hands, and let out the first racking sob. She had tried to do one small good thing, and now it seemed it was going to cost her everything. Alara spent 20 minutes in the back room, her sobs slowly subsiding into dry, hiccuping breaths. She splashed water on her face from the utility sink, staring at the woman in the cracked mirror. "Get it together, Chavez. Sophia needs her. Crying in a closet wouldn't pay the bills." She wiped her eyes, straightened her apron, and pushed the door open, ready to face Max's lingering anger and the whispers of the remaining customers. She stepped out and froze. Max was at the counter, his jaw slack. Mrs. Rodriguez and Sam were both staring again. Another car was parked out front. This wasn't a brutish, muscular Lincoln Navigator. This was a dark gray, almost black Audi A8. It was sleek, silent, and radiated a kind of wealth that didn't need to be loud. It was parked legally. A woman was stepping out of the back seat. If the men earlier were off-the-rack suits, this woman was pure couture. She wore a perfectly tailored navy blue pantsuit, a simple silk shell underneath, and shoes that Alara vaguely recognized from a magazine. The ones with the red lacquered soles. Christian Louboutins. They probably cost more than Alara's car. The woman's hair was a severe, elegant blonde bob. She carried a slim leather portfolio and wore a pair of glasses that made her look more like a severe intellectual than a waitress. She walked into the cafe, the bell chiming delicately, as if it were afraid to be too loud in her presence. She didn't scan the room with nervous energy. She simply observed, her gaze taking in Max, the customers, and finally landing on Alara. She walked directly to the counter, her heels making a quiet, authoritative click-clack on the linoleum floor. She smelled expensive, like light florals and new money. She waited patiently for Alara to stop gaping. "Miss Alara Chavez?" the woman asked. Her voice was smooth, cultured, and held zero trace of threat. It was the voice of someone who had never been told no in her life. Alara, still rattled from the encounter with Vane, found her voice. "Who's asking?" A small, thin smile played on the woman's lips. "A fair question, given your morning. My name is Audrey Vance. I am the Chief of Staff and Legal Counsel for Mr. Silas Sterling." Alara's entire body tensed. "Sterling? Like Sterling Trust Solutions?" She pointed a shaky finger at the business card Vane had left, which was still sitting on the counter. Ms. Vance's eyes followed her finger. Her elegant nose wrinkled as if she had just smelled something foul. "Ah," she said, picking up the card with 2 fingers. "Precisely not like them. Damon Sterling is Mr. Sterling's estranged son. Those men who visited you, Mr. Vane and his associates, are, let's call them, private contractors. They are not affiliated with us. They are, in fact, in direct opposition to us." She tore the business card in half, then in quarters, and dropped the pieces neatly into the trash bin. "Mr. Silas Sterling," she continued, "the man you know as Mr. Silas, has sent me. He was extraordinarily moved by your kindness last night. He sends his deepest apologies for the theatricality of his son." Alara was reeling. I don't understand. Is he okay?" "Those men said he was confused, that he had dementia." Vance actually laughed. It was a short, sharp sound like ice cubes hitting a crystal glass. "Confused, Ms. Chavez? Silas Sterling is the sharpest man I have ever met. He is the founder and majority shareholder of Ascend Global. He is eccentric. He is a billionaire. But he is most assuredly not confused." The word billionaire hung in the air. Max, behind the counter, made a small, choking sound. "Then what was he doing at the Cornerstone Lodge?" Alara asked. "In that coat?" Ms. Vance's expression softened. "May we speak somewhere private? My client has a rather significant proposal for you, and I believe you are the only one who can help us in return." Max, his eyes wide as saucers, practically shoved Alara toward his back office. "The office. Use my office. It's private. Alara, go. Take your time." Alara, feeling like she'd been untethered from reality, followed the impossibly elegant woman into Max's tiny, messy office, which smelled of old invoices and stale donuts. Ms. Vance didn't sit in the rickety folding chair. She stood, her posture perfect, and placed her leather portfolio on the desk. "Please, Miss Chavez, call me Audrey," she said, opening the portfolio. What I am about to tell you is covered by a verbal non-disclosure agreement, which my team will formalize later, for your protection as much as ours. What you did last night, it was more important than you can possibly imagine." Audrey Vance looked Alara in the eye. "To understand the proposal, you must first understand the man. Silas Sterling is not just a billionaire. He is a man who built an empire from nothing. And he has come to believe that his great wealth is a disease, a fortress that keeps real, genuine human decency at bay." Alara, still stunned, just nodded. "For the past 3 years," Audrey continued, "his son Damon has been a disappointment. Damon sees the company, the wealth, as his birthright. He sees his father's generosity as weakness, as senility. For 5 years, Damon has been trying to have Silas declared legally incompetent to gain a conservatorship over the estate. He's turned half the board against his own father. So those men, Vane, were hired by Damon," Audrey finished, "to track Silas, to build a case that he's losing his mind, wandering around giving away money. They want to prove he's a danger to himself and the family's finances. But why was he there? Why the disguise?" "It's not a disguise, not really," Audrey said. "That coat was his grandfather's. He calls it a social audit. Mr. Sterling has a philanthropic trust. It's called the Beacon Fund. It's worth nearly $900 million. She paused, letting the number sink in. Alara felt dizzy. "Mr. Sterling believes that traditional charity is broken. It's all galas and photo ops. He wanted to find people who are genuinely good, people who do the right thing when no one is watching, and when they have every reason not to. So, several times a year, he goes out. He becomes Mr. Silas, a man with nothing. He tests the world to see if there is any kindness left." Alara's blood was roaring in her ears. And for 3 years, no one has passed. He's been mocked, ignored, splashed by taxis and shoved aside until last night. Audrey's professional mask cracked and she smiled, a real warm smile. "You, Alara Chavez, you were tired, you were broke, you were wet, and you stopped. You not only helped him, you gave him a ride. And then, and this is the part he cannot stop talking about, you refused the $5 he offered. He said, and I quote, "She needed that money, Audrey. I saw it in her eyes and she gave it back to me. She protected her dignity and mine. You, Miss Chavez, are the first person to qualify for the Beacon Fund in 37 months. Alara finally had to sit. She slumped into Max's squeaky chair. "Qualify? What does that mean?" Audrey pulled a tablet from her portfolio and slid it across the desk. "When you passed the test, as he calls it, my team was activated. While he was at the Cornerstone Lodge, which we had on standby, my team did a full, non-invasive background check on you. We do this to ensure the recipients are as they appear, and to understand their needs." On the screen was a photo of Sophia. She was smiling, holding a small model airplane. "We know about Sophia," Audrey said softly. "We know about the respiratory condition. We know about the $3,500 bill for the medication and the $16,000 in medical debt you've already accrued. We know about the lapsed permanent residency application." Alara was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of release. "Mr. Sterling wants to help you," Audrey said. "This isn't a loan. It's not a handout. It's an investment in you." She slid a folder across the desk. "This is the proposal." Alara opened it with trembling hands. Inside, the first page was a letter, not from a lawyer, but from Silas. His handwriting was a shaky, elegant cursive. "Dear Alara, thank you. You reminded an old man that there is still light in the world. You have your mother's eyes, not in color, but in clarity. Now please let me help you. This is not charity, it is a transaction. You gave me hope. I am giving you security. We are, I believe, square. Yours, Silas Sterling." The second page was a list. 1. The immediate transfer of Sophia Chavez to the St. Jude Pediatric Clinic in Boston. It's the foremost respiratory treatment center in the world. A private medical transport jet is on standby at the local executive airport. 2. The full and complete payment of all outstanding medical and personal debts held by Ilara Chavez. 3. The establishment of a blind trust in Ilara Chavez's name with a principal of $6 million to be used for her and her sister's education, housing, and living expenses. 4. A fully funded, fast-tracked legal defense and application for permanent residency status. 5. A new secure apartment in a building with 24-hour security, effective immediately. Ilara read the list 3 times. The words $6 million swam before her eyes. This isn't real, she whispered. This is a joke. It's a prank. I assure you, Ms. Chavez, Silas Sterling does not have a sense of humor about his finances. This is very real. All you have to do is say yes. Why? Ilara asked, looking up, the tears still on her cheeks. Why me? It was just a ride. That's the point, Audrey said. To you, it was just a ride. To him, it was proof. Proof that his son is wrong. Proof that the world is worth saving. And what do you need from me? Ilara asked. You said I could help you. Audrey's face turned serious. This is the delicate part. Damon, he's furious. He knows his father was at the cornerstone and he knows he's gone. His investigators, Mr. Vane, are now convinced that you are part of some conspiracy. That you're a con artist, a gold digger who somehow lured his father. That's insane. It is, but Damon is powerful and he's desperate. He is going to come at you. He will try to paint you as a manipulator to the courts. He will try to prove you stole this money. Audrey leaned in. Mr. Sterling's proposal is not contingent on this. You can take the money, and we will fly you to Boston tonight. You never have to see any of us again. Or, you can help us. You can help us fight Damon. You can testify in the conservatorship hearing about what happened, that you're not a con artist, that you're just a person who helped another person. What? What would happen if I don't? If I just go? We will protect you, but Damon will paint you as a flight risk who took the money and ran. It will damage Mr. Sterling's case. It might be the final piece of proof Damon needs to show his father is being manipulated by strangers. Ilara looked at the folder. She looked at the picture of Sophia. She thought of Vane's threatening face. She thought of Mr. Silas's kind, watery eyes. She was a waitress. She was broke. She was scared. But she was not a coward. And she was not a con artist. He's going to come at me? Ilara asked, her voice quiet. With everything he has? Genevieve confirmed. Ilara closed the folder. She took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel thin. It felt full. Okay, Ilara said, pushing the folder back to Audrey. I don't need the $6 million. Audrey raised an eyebrow. I mean, I do, Ilara stammered. But the trust, the apartment, it's too much. Just help Sophia. That's all I care about. Get her to that clinic. I'll pay you back. Audrey Vance stared at Ilara Chavez. The silence stretched. Then the elegant, unshakable chief of staff did something Ilara never expected. She put her head on the desk and laughed. It was a full, delighted, gasping laugh. Oh my word, Audrey said, wiping a tear from her eye. He was right about you. You really are the one. She stood up. Her composure returned. Miss Chavez, the offer is non-negotiable. You are not paying back a gift. You will accept the entire package because that is what Mr. Sterling wishes, and because, frankly, you're going to need that secure apartment. Just as she said it, the bell on the cafe door chimed, but this time, it was a crash. The door slammed open, hitting the wall. Max shrieked, "Sir, you can't go back there!" The office door burst open, splintering the cheap wood frame. A man stood there. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a hand-tailored suit that probably cost $10,000. He was handsome, with dark, slicked-back hair and a face that belonged on a magazine. But his eyes were full of pure, undiluted rage. Mr. Vane stood just behind him, looking grim. "There you are," the man snarled, pointing a shaking finger at Ilara. "Bringing another one of his angels, are we, Audrey? He stepped into the room, his gaze falling on Alara. It was a look of such profound loathing she felt it like a physical blow. "And you?" Damon Sterling spat. "You little gold-digging rat. How much? How much did my father pay you to play this part? 10? 20? Name your price. I'll double it right now for you to walk away and tell the court he's insane." The tiny office seemed to shrink, the air sucked out of it by the sheer force of Damon Sterling's fury. Alara was pinned by his stare, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was not a private investigator making threats. This was the threat itself. Audrey Vance, however, looked bored. "Damon," she said, her voice dripping with ice, "you're trespassing and you're making a scene. It's very common." "Don't you Damon me," he roared, jabbing a finger at her. "You're his puppet. You enable this. He's senile. He's giving my family's legacy away to waitresses." He turned his full, burning attention back to Alara. "So, this is your angle, isn't it? The sick sister? The green card application?" Alara's blood, which had been frozen, suddenly ran hot. "Don't you talk about my sister," Alara said. Her voice was low and it was shaking, but not with fear, with rage. Damon laughed, a cruel barking sound. "Oh, touch a nerve? It's a classic grift. The sick kid. It's a miracle you didn't have her on the street corner with you holding a tin cup. It's pathetic." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook, a gold pen. "Look, I'm a reasonable man. This game is over. He's not giving you a cent. I'm contesting the will. I'm contesting the trust. And I will get the conservatorship. You'll be tied up in litigation until that sick kid of yours is—" He let the sentence hang in the air. That was it. Alara stood up. The rickety chair screeched against the floor. She was shorter than Damon. She was poorer. She had no power. But she walked right up to him until they were barely a foot apart. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, her voice clear and cold. "I didn't know who he was. I helped an old man in the rain because he was cold, because he was wet, because he was a human being. A concept I'm sure you find contemptible." She jabbed a finger into his $10,000 suit-clad chest. "You think money is all there is? You think everyone is like you? You're wrong." Damon's handsome face contorted. He was not used to this. He was used to people cowering. He looked at Vane. "Get her off me." Vane stepped forward, grabbing Alara's arm. "You heard the man, lady. Back off." "Don't touch her." Audrey's voice cut through the air. She had her phone out, recording. "Mr. Vane, that is assault. Mr. Sterling, you are on private property harassing a private citizen. You have both been recorded threatening Ms. Chavez. Two of Mr. Silas Sterling's actual security team, who, unlike your hired thugs, are professionals, are currently outside. I suggest you leave before I have you both arrested for trespassing and aggravated harassment." Damon looked past Audrey, through the open office door. Standing just inside the cafe's main entrance were two new men. They hadn't been there a second ago. They were both tall, wore simple dark suits that were perfectly tailored and had earpieces. They weren't bodyguards in the thuggish way Vane was. They were operators. They looked calm, professional, and exceptionally dangerous. One of them, a man with Asian American features, gave a slight nod to Audrey. Vane, to his credit, recognized a superior threat. He let go of Alara's arm and took a half step back. Damon was trapped. He was used to winning with threats, and when that failed, with money. He had just tried both and failed spectacularly. The humiliation radiated off him in waves. He smoothed his suit, his face a mask of cold fury. "This isn't over," he whispered to Alara. "You took your shot. You aligned yourself with a senile old fool. When I win, and I will win, I am going to strip you of every last cent. I will make it my personal mission to see you back in this rat-infested diner. I will see you in court." "I look forward to it," Audrey said, smiling brightly. "My associates, Mr. Bao and Mr. Tran, will show you out." Damon sneered. "This is my family's money. You remember that?" He stormed out, Vane trailing behind him like a chastened dog. The cafe was silent as they passed the two new security men who didn't even flinch. The black navigator sped away. The silence that followed was profound. Alara finally let out the breath she'd been holding. She sank back into the chair, her legs turning to jelly. Audrey calmly put her phone away. "Well," she said, "that went about as well as I expected." Max was standing in the doorway, his face the color of unbaked dough. He broke my door. "Send me the invoice for the entire door frame and for the emotional distress. Put $12,000 on it," Audrey said. "Now, Alara, we're leaving." "Leaving? What? What about my shift?" Audrey and Max both looked at her. Max found his voice. "Alara, I think you're fired or promoted. You're a millionaire. You can't work here." "He's right," Audrey said, picking up her portfolio. "Your employment at the Daily Grind has officially ended. Mr. Bao will get your things." "But, Sophia, my apartment—" "Sophia's sitter has already been contacted," Audrey said, guiding Alara out of the office. "She's packing a bag for him and herself. They're being picked up by a separate car and taken to the executive airport. You and I will be meeting them there." This is so fast." "That, Ms. Chavez, is how we win. Damon operates on bluster and intimidation. We operate on speed and precision." Audrey paused at the front door, turning Alara to face her. "You were incredibly brave in there." "I was terrified," Alara admitted. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear, Alara. It's doing what you did despite the fear." She opened the door. "Now, let's go get your sister." Mr. Bao held the Audi's door open. As Alara slid into the buttery leather interior, which smelled nothing like old coffee, she looked back at the Daily Grind. Max was already on the phone. Mrs. Rodriguez was sipping her coffee, a look of profound satisfaction on her face. The door closed with a solid, satisfying thunk, sealing out the world she knew. The car pulled away from the curb as silent as a whisper. The next 6 months were a blur, a whirlwind of experiences Alara had only ever seen in movies. The Gulfstream G650 jet was the first shock. Sophia, her sister, wasn't scared. She was ecstatic. She'd never been on a plane, and her first was a private jet with a flight nurse who explained her new treatment plan. For the first time, Alara saw real, unadulterated hope in her eyes. The St. Jude Clinic in Boston was another world. It looked more like a 5-star hotel than a hospital. The air was clean, the doctors were kind, and within 48 hours, Sophia was on a new regimen of treatments. The change was not instantaneous, but it was steady. Her coughing subsided. She gained weight. The dark circles under her eyes faded. Alara stayed in a beautiful, fully furnished corporate apartment overlooking a snowy park. She had a security detail. Mr. Bao, who it turned out had a dry sense of humor, and Mr. Tran, who was silent but always seemed to have a hot coffee for her. She had a job. She was on retainer for the Beacon Fund. Her title was Special Consultant. Her first assignment was to get her permanent residency and a degree in health administration. Silas was paying for the best tutors, and she was enrolled in online classes which she attacked with a ferocious determination. But the fight wasn't over. Damon Sterling was true to his word. The court battle was brutal. Damon's lawyers filed motion after motion. They painted Alara as a calculating opportunist. They pulled her bank records, her work history. They brought Max in, who testified truthfully that Alara was always desperate for money. They tried to twist her every action. "Ms. Chavez," a slick lawyer asked her during a deposition, "you, a woman with thousands in debt and an expiring visa, just happened to find a reclusive billionaire and just happened to charm him out of millions. Isn't it true you targeted him?" Alara sat in the sterile deposition room with Audrey by her side. She remembered what Silas had told her in the rain. "Don't let the world take that from you." "No, sir," Alara said, her voice steady. "I saw an old man who was cold. I offered him a ride. I refused his money. And when your client, Mr. Damon Sterling, offered me a check to lie, I refused that too. I'm not the one here who only sees people as dollar signs. You are." The tide turned on the final day. Audrey, who had been saving her final card, called a surprise witness. It was Silas Sterling. He didn't look like the frail man in the threadbare coat. He walked in wearing a simple, elegant dark suit, his white hair neatly combed. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO, but his eyes were the same. He sat, and in a quiet, firm voice, he dismantled his son. He spoke of his wife, Constance, who had died 20 years prior. "She was like Alara," he said, his voice thick. "She came from nothing. She believed in people. She would have been so disappointed in you, Damon." He spoke of the social audits. "My son," he said, looking at Damon, "believes I am insane because I want to give my money away. He believes that hoarding wealth is sanity. The court must decide which definition it prefers." And then he spoke of Alara. "This young woman," he said, pointing to her, "is not the defendant. She is the Exhibit A. She is proof that my audit was a success. She is proof that decency exists. She didn't ask for my money. She asked for my well-being. She gave me her time, her car, and her compassion when she had precious little of any to spare. My son has never given me anything but a headache." The judge's ruling was swift. Case dismissed. The conservatorship was denied. Mr. Sterling was found to be exceptionally competent. Damon Sterling's face was white. He had lost. Not just the case, he had lost everything. A month later, Alara was in the park in Boston. Sophia was throwing a frisbee with Mr. Bao, laughing a deep, clear laugh that didn't end in a cough. A man sat down on the bench next to her. It was Silas. "She sounds good," Silas said, gesturing to Sophia. "She is good," Alara said, smiling. "Thank you, Silas." "No, Alara, thank you. You saved me from my own cynicism and from my son." "What will happen to him?" Alara asked of Damon. "Oh, the board of Ascend Global removed him. I believe he's finding himself in the Swiss Alps. A terrible fate," Silas said with a twinkle in his eye. He handed her a new folder. "Now, your next assignment." Alara opened it. The Miami project. "A new social audit? But this time, you're not the test subject. You're the one running it. Audrey needs a break. I want you to go find me another Alara Chavez. I'm told they're rare, but they're out there." Alara looked at the folder, then at her sister, who was healthy. She looked at the man who had changed her life. "I think I know just where to look," she said. She was no longer a waitress. She was not a victim. She was a Samaritan, and she was just getting started. The world is full of people like Damon who believe that kindness is a weakness to be exploited. And it's full of people like Max who are too afraid to get involved. But it's also full of Alaras, people who, despite being tired, broke, and beaten down, will still stop in the rain to help a stranger. We often think that to change the world, we need to be powerful or rich. But that night, all it took was one person, one car ride, and one simple, profound act of kindness. That single act saved more than one life. It reminded a billionaire what his money was actually for,